Hello and welcome back, and today I want to return to the subject of the Zettlab AI NAS, an NAS that we talked about a few times in 2024, and a product that is oh so close to traditional retail. And today we're going to return to the subject looking at the Zettlab Ultra. This is the D6 I've had in the studio for about 2.5 months at this point, and with all of the firmware updates it's been having, I've been wanting to do a full review on it, but I want to wait until it goes to full retail. I want to review this as the RC full AI. I want the AI that it is going to launch with to be the one that people are buying it, because this is proposed as an AI solution that you are buying off the shelf. It's a local AI, but you shouldn't have to be dicking around too much by choosing models, dealing with tokens, API, command line. This is meant to be true off the shelf. And until it hits full retail, I don't want to review that software. This is an update talking about the full OS. Yes, we're going to talk about the AI stuff, and I've just recorded a comparison, by the way, between this and Ugreen's AI NAS as well, if that's not live already. If it is live, it will be linked below, but otherwise it will be coming up on the channel very soon. But before we go any further, a quick few updates. I'm going to be utilizing the Windows client application, but before we get to that, I do want to highlight a few things. So number one, I will be looking in the background here about a network switch from Unify that is monitoring the traffic of this local AI NAS, and we'll come back to this later on, but for now let's go ahead and copy and paste that entire contents there. We're going to pop it into Google Gemini right now and just ask it right now, tell me if there is any concerns over this web traffic. And we'll come back to this page later on, but that is just the last hour, that's the day I should say, of the Zettlab running there in the background is just the Zettlab, and we'll come back to that later on. In the meantime, while it does that, it's worth highlighting that the Zettlab NAS, for those that aren't aware, this was that locally deployed AI NAS that went live over on Kickstarter, and again it raised 11,000 Hong Kong dollars there. You can do the maths for yourselves, around about $1 million I think, give or take. There was a bunch of updates throughout the course of the campaign. Again, I've done the whole roadmap there, everything they covered, what they did, all the bits and bobs. Again, whether you call it a success, it's not completed yet, so we can't really call it a success overall. Comments-wise, one of the biggest hurdles it hit was to do with when this was first launched. It was first revealed in autumn of 2024, and it was launched in early 2025. And when it did launch, they probably weren't as aware, or at least prepared for, the memory and the SSD price hikes and shortages. Consequently, towards the end of the campaign, when they've started fulfilling people's orders, they've had to ship them without the RAM, and they have been issuing refunds for that RAM, but let's face it, for an AI NAS, RAM is key. So I know a lot of users are super annoyed about that, but again, it's give and take. At least they've gone to the trouble of giving out refunds on the RAM, again, proportional. I think I've mentioned this before, I don't like it when a campaign does posts for backers only. Comments for backers only, there's a give and take, but updates I'm less agreed upon, but again, they did talk about that a lot in the updates. And right now there is availability on their own web pages to purchase the non-Ultra version. That is the version running on an RK ARM chip, and it requires a client application to assist the local AI processing. You can get hold of that now, the D4 or the D6. The Ultra series is in pre-order, so again, I want to see the full retail operating system before we commit to this. But again, pricing with or without the RAM. So if we go for the D6, that's what we're using today. Without RAM, it's $1,000, and with RAM, you're looking at 1,600. Again, I'd have to look into whether that's saving, how legit that is. But this is the client application here. So this client application you can access from the web browser, by the way. If you do that, some of the AI features you can't access. The client localized application here. Let's go straight into the tool here. So this is what we use when we want to check in on what, the AI services. One of the big bits of praise I gave this system in its early review, and still something, particularly after looking at the Ugreen system, I like quite a lot, is the fact that when I upload data onto this system, the AI automatically starts scraping information. Now, I do think Zettlab could stand to allow more configuration on that. We'll get onto that more later on. But the idea is that all of the data that I dump onto this system, and I've dumped around 3 terabytes of data on this system. Let's double check and get more precise on that. Let's go storage information. We can see that I've dumped about 3 terabytes there out of a maximum 108 terabytes of available space across hard drives there. And of that, 3 terabytes is already scraped a lot. So we go into the personal folder. I've got mixed media, and it's all in there, ready to rock and be pulled to pieces. The AI deployment on this, it kind of splinters into the following ways. Number one, you can go into the AI categories. So this is where you can create your own categories. So for example, if I ask the system to come up with, let's go for, do you know what? We're not going to be brand loyal. If we look up Synology NAS, and now it's going to search for images and data based on Synology NAS. This will extend, as you can see, to MKV. It will also extend to photos. It will extend into audio recordings as well, because that data has already been pre-crawled. So whether it's the file names, whether it's the word being pulled from within the file itself, or the transcription of things that I have said, it has allowed me to now create that smart filtered category there. And I can do that with anything. So it's quite nice to have that flexibility when that data has been pre-crawled. The issue lies that I think a lot of users would rather pick and choose where is being crawled. So be it that specific folders are being crawled, or that they want to say afterwards, right, crawl that directory. I don't want anything crawled until I tell you to crawl that area. That level of customization is not present here. And again, check out the Ugreen video when it goes out for some back and forth on that. But there isn't really any customization in this section. If we go into the AI categories, there's not much you can play with there. You have to go directly into the Zettlab's AI to configure some of those options. So as you can see, you can install multiple options. There is an in-system AI already pre-installed when you get the system apparently, but you can choose between numerous ones at varying levels of memory consumption and storage overall. You've also got external GPU support, which you can take advantage of if you want to use that facility. But right now I'm running quite a hefty VM there at 16.5 gigabytes. It's quite high memory utilization as well, so I've got that at my fingertips to take advantage of. But I really wish I could designate, and I say I wish, I know there are users that will some wish that they could designate targets for the AI to access. And again, when it comes to the AI crawling, so if we go back into those settings and we go into the AI settings, as you can see, the AI is switched on. So right now, the AI will start scraping that information from photos, from documents, so Excel docs, scraping it from audio and video as well. All of it being scraped as the data goes up, but I can turn that off if I choose to, and then the AI is not working. But you can also schedule learning periods so that you can enable it only certain periods of the day that it will scrape that data. So you can have it so when everyone's asleep at like 2 a.m., 3 a.m., I don't know how you live your life, then it can start doing the scraping. So you can pre-allocate resource consumption a little bit better. But still, I wish there was an option here that I could select individual folders, select individual users that have got access to that, because user management is there. And if I go to operations there, I can say storage permissions, what it can access, but I can't say that that user's got no access to the AI information. That level of control still needs to be there. Now, heading back into the Zettlab's AI, utilization of the AI is broken down as follows. Number one, you can go with the Zettlab AI to effectively just ask it to retrieve stuff. So if I go on here and say, find me photos, or actually, we're not going to go for photos. We'll go into the chat settings. We'll start with that because we've already got some stuff here. So if I say for it, remember it's only using local information there. Tell me about QNAP NAS. So I'm asking it to only use the information inside the system. So that's going to be documents, photos, scripts. When I've spoken about QNAP in different videos, because I've uploaded terabytes of information from my own recordings onto this system, as you can see, is pulling that information quite neatly. Now, to get an understanding of where that information is being taken from, if we go into clip mode here, this is where if you want to utilize some of the video or audio on your system, these files, just quickly dump those. This is an example of the pre-allocation of that data. So if we go with open with clip, this user interface here could really stand to be improved. I think it needs to be a lot more like the file manager. I know that's a big job, and we'll come back to these docs later on. but it needs to be a little bit more easier to see what exactly I'm accessing here, changing and filtering the view a little bit from thumbnail to list. But for example, if I go into my personal folder there, going to mixed, we're going to channel data, or even better, if we go into mixed data, we've got information here from video files that I perhaps have used for Plex. So we'll go for Plex NAS VMs, 4K files, my 4K test files there. Confirm that. Oh, I haven't got any files in there. That's annoying. So if we go into the channel data there, head in, select a file like we see here, and boom, this is a video file. I can't even remember what this video was about. And as you can see, within there, it's already got the script pre-crawled. It's already pulled that information there. It's only a 3-minute file. Let's go for a slightly bigger file, shall we? Let's go for something big. Let's search for a DJI file so we know it's from my camera there. So let's go into it there. Let's go for something a little heftier, shall we? Go for that one there, and clearly reaching for the mic. That'll be a big file. What's that? 12 minutes long. As you can see, it's already pre-crawled all of that dialogue in there. So again, from here, we can then find and search out information. We can cut out sections of that if we choose. Again, pop it together. It's an interesting thing to be able to see how that information has been crawled, but really it comes down to pulling that information. You can even see some of the devices that have been reviewed here. Same goes for the knowledge Q&A. So if I go into here and say, tell me about Intel NAS, as you can see, it's already provided and found information there where I have mentioned Intel NAS solutions there, some documentation. Again, it's not expansive. We'll get onto something like that in a moment. That gives you some idea about it. But again, it kind of refers only to the content I have discussed. Whereas if I go into the full search, so if I go in here and say Intel NAS, from there, it will then break down into photos, video, audio, documentation. It will find all of that, and then from there, so for example in images, it's now found images there of different products. It's got a kind of understanding of just how accurate or how close to the mark it is to what I'm searching for there. Same goes in the videos where it's crawled that information, and from that not only can we see the visual, we can break down into just the audio if we choose to, and then from there find the individual keywords within that dialogue of that. And that really breaks down, for example, something I mentioned before, and I can't do it because of YouTube's fun copyright system. If I had 10 years of TV shows on this and it was Easter, and I want to find TV shows about Easter, episodes within TV shows about Easter, I could put into this, and it's not going to work here. Show me TV shows about Easter. Unfortunately, there are no TV shows on this NAS, but it would allow it to find episodes that mention Easter. So even Christmas, let's see if there's anything on here for Christmas. It would be interesting to see if it can find that information. There's songs. Again, I don't know how it's finding some of these audio files that mention the word Christmas. I'll be very interested. I don't know if this is using, so for example, that's in file names, but then you've got some of the dialogue, such as finding Christmas episodes. This is actually a dialogue from a previous video that I did here on the channel. It's clearly picked up that I've said Christmas. Now, I'm curious if some of these audio files, because of the percentage number that it's saying, I'm wondering if some of those are using semantic search, or therefore associated words within that bubble. So within images, for example, that's found a Christmas tree. The word Christmas is nowhere in this image, but clearly it has found that Christmas tree. My cat isn't Christmas, although you would wonder sometimes. But it's interesting that it's using that semantic searcher in the background for people opening presents, a Christmas tree, Lego, that sort of thing. I quite like that feature and facility for data retrieval, and that's been made possible due to the pre-scraping. Now, again, had it allowed me to pre-select folders, that would have been quite nice. But if I've got to pick between all data being scraped or selective or no access to that feature, I'm going to pick all data being scraped. I just wish they allow for more tailoring of what's being accessed. The same goes, by the way, to some of the configuration of the models here. You can't really scale too much, and I know they're trying to go for off-the-shelf turnkey AI, but I wish there was more control of that. Now, moving ever so slightly away from the AI, one of the things I wanted to talk about based on my initial reviews of the non-Ultra product, when it was shipped to me for the review, the pre-Kickstarter review, their OS at that time was perfunctory at best. It was nowhere near evolved. They were clearly focusing a lot more on the AI deployment, nailing the fundamentals, and then wrapping the operating system around it. Now, I think the operating system is at a position now where we should review it. I know this isn't quite full retail yet, but I do want to talk about the operating system because for the most part, I like it. It still needs work, but for the most part, I like it. Now, to put it into perspective, we do have the usual sort of the layout of things. The UX is kind of where you expect everything to be. Checking for updates there. Password control. Again, two-factor authentication is available. It's not available out the gate. You do need to go into the application center, go into the official applications, and then from there, I should say from the others, install two authorization via an app installation. It's not available out the gate, but it is available to pop on. I like that it details, by the way, required memory utilization and more, and two-factor authentication is here, but it's not as seamlessly integrated as I've seen other brands do it. We have virtualization, we have a virtual machine manager, where we can create and manage our own VM. There's zero integration of the AI into that. Everything's pretty much what you would expect. It arrives with images that you can pre-download, or if you've got local images, you can add them. So for example, upload from your local system. You've got that, deployment of VMs. It's fairly standard stuff. High availability and rollback of snapshots on those. It's a fairly rudimentary virtual machine tool, I would say, but at the very least, they've got one inside there. And again, assigning it to its own IP, a virtual IP, you can do that. The same goes with Docker. A lot of the third-party applications require Docker by default, so chances are you're going to be installing Docker whether you like it or not. It would have been nice, I think, to have the AI assistance, but I think that would have required a little bit more external internet access for the AI in order to get that done. The file folder is pretty darn good. I quite like it. We'll come back to this window in just a moment. Let's open up a fresh tab. So within the file explorer, it's all pretty good stuff. You've got the selective individual user folders there, application folders, which you can restrict access to for individual users to stop them breaking the system. File sharing, so if we go ahead and share ourselves a file, let's share a whole folder. Let's share that. Right click, share for internal. Again, select individual users. All fairly straightforward stuff. Or you can go for external. Of course, external, we're creating a link, how long you want it to last for, whether you want to. There's no option to add a password. That really surprised me. You've got the extraction code, but again, you can't configure that. And what you can do, if you go into the shared by me, you can change some of the rules on there, whether it's active or not. Again, it's what you're going to find time and time again with this OS. The features on facilities and services are there, but they're not as polished. Clearly, Zettlab have spent a lot of this development time on the AI, and now optimization, localization, and more is happening, and that's areas where I do think we're still waiting to see the finished product and ultimately finishing of these products. But a lot of that integration of the pre-scraped data is available here within the file manager. You don't have to immediately go into an AI assistant. So for example, all of the video files. So let's find a video file here. Let's go for, again, we've got ones here that is literally just a screen record. So what's this? Official page scroll. We want to go for something a bit long, so let's list these by size. We should get some nice big old files for us to play with there. Let's find out what the hell this file is here. So if we select that file, we can find out more information about it. So when we get the information for the file there in the background, AI status has failed to scan that. Yeah, that's one of the newer files I've uploaded, annoyingly. So let's go for something else, because I literally uploaded some data just prior to the recording of this video. Scrolling along. Oh, do you know what? Hang on. Let's go for that one, because it has no name, so we have no idea what this is. It's 6 minutes long. Let's go for that. What do we see? We can see the file's been learned, and there we go. There is our transcript. So we've got that real-time information about that built into the file explorer without having to go into the Coard application. And again, it's quite nice. We can copy and paste that out if we choose to. And that extends, by the way, to audio files as well. So if we just look at Oasis, Don't Look Back in Anger, have we got the script? Have we got the lyrics? It's learned, bang, it's there. So again, we could go into, just real quick, I'm going to say, go for that real quick. Oasis lyrics. Let's see if it understands the context of that question. Going back in, documentation. So if you're looking at PDF, so for example, let's have a look at that. There is, let's go for during QNAP's conference a little while ago. We can see that it has crawled the information from this PDF and it's learnt it there. On the right hand side, we can find out more information, but it's not pulling up the same kind of real life ready to go OCR that we saw earlier before, but I'm sure if we went into the AI, we'd see more of that. Going back to the AI, we can see, again, I'm not quite sure what this audio has got anything to do with me looking for Oasis lyrics. All I can assume is the word Oasis is said in here. We got the keyword results, But when it comes to some of these, again, I can only assume because it's coming with that 46 before YouTube starts capping me for some of these files. So again, it's not seamless right now, and I'm not going to say that's perfect, but at the very least I know it is crawling that information. It's presumably using some kind of semantic search there in the background. But having these tools integrated into the file manager like this, I've not seen many brands do. There's the standard stuff, whether you want to add cloud storage there and sort of bolt that on to be able to synchronize it if you choose to. The same goes if you want to use web assets, although that's not going to be for everyone. Those configuration options are there. You've got all the standard stuff built into the File Explorer as well. You copy, you paste, you extract, you compress. They're all there. And again, the fundamentals are being nailed. I do, however, wish there was more contextual utilization of the AI. So, for example, here we have a press release from QNAP from one of their events. If I right-click that, I can only download it. Now, if I go into the App Center, I'm sure I can probably download some kind of Office tool or Office management thing. But what I want is the ability to right-click this file and from there get that real-time information. So if I go for info, it's learned, but it's not pulling that down. I would like, for example, to right-click it and say, summarize this file for me. Now, that may seem quite demanding, but the reason I bring it up is a very similar hardware NAS to, say, the one from Ugreen. Sorry to bring them up in, I feel like I'm throwing shade. We can have a look at this one for Tech Summit documentation here or Other World Computing. We can right-click that, use their AI, and ask it to summarize it. And it will summarize that document for me on the fly. So I know it's possible on this hardware, on an Intel Ultra processor. So it's one of those things that I wish the Zettlab system was able to provide. And it's one of those areas where I think the kind of melding of this AI stuff and a NAS operating system could still stand to be done. Now, returning to the control panel, as mentioned earlier on, most of the configuration and control options are there. So there's all our real-time information about our system. There's our user management, so we can create new users, although the level of things that we can do with our new user is pretty limited. We can assign them storage permissions to the apps and services, what I would like, but adding two-factor authentication organically isn't there, as well as what elements of the AI it can and cannot access as a non-admin isn't really configurable there. User groups, for example, again, adding users, adding them into user groups. The fundamentals, the basic stuff is there, but no more than that. Storage management, a little bit more impressive. Not only have we got the ability to create those multiple RAID configurations, as well as SSD pools and SSD caching, they're all configurable and manageable all there. And again, if we go into the individual disks, we can have a little look at what we can do. So we look at the health status. We can run a test disk on that with SMART. But that's really it. Benchmarking isn't really available to us here, which is a shame because I think a lot of people quite like having that. Hardware management, again, with the fans, you can manage them up and down. It is responsive, and you can use the AI if you choose to give commands and tell the system to do things. Although I will say the level of controls, what can you do? The level of commands open to you aren't that many right now. They haven't added that many since my initial review. And this was one of the things I really wanted their system to expand greatly on, to allow people that aren't that tech savvy to use human commands to a system in order to get the job done. I've mentioned this in other videos, but I'll say it again. An off-the-shelf AI NAS solution primarily should offer three main things as a value proposition, not just as hardware. Number one, it should allow for human-based commands to be issued to a system to get the job done. Whether I want the system to create a new account, create storage, create a new share, I should be able to use human language. I know it's early days, but it should allow me to do that. The second thing it should do is scrape the information for me and make it convenient and seamless in the background, that when I'm using AI tools, that I shouldn't have to make many more extra steps than I would have traditionally to searching for files. And thirdly, the retrieval of that information. I want to be able to ask more specialized questions to save time. That's what AI LLMs are about. And using a locally deployed AI LLM, for example, as mentioned, to ask it to retrieve TV shows or multimedia to a given theme that would take me minutes or hours or days or weeks or months to achieve. Or if I have 10 years of spreadsheets of staff, say I've got 600 members of staff and I want to ask the system, give me all of the members of staff that have been at the company for more than 5 years. I want to be able to ask that in human language and get that response. And this system isn't quite there, in my opinion, in order to give me that service. Whereas on the Ugreen side of things, and again, we've done a whole comparison, they're a little closer to doing that, allowing me to right-click files or create a knowledge base And again, we'll talk about that more in the comparison, but ultimately their system doesn't have the pre-scraping that the Zettlab does. So it really is ad hoc. But the ad hoc method does have advantages, it has to be said. So both, chalk and cheese. So at least for now, in terms of control, most of the controls of the system are being conducted by the same traditional original methods. Again, with some of the settings with that front-mounted LCD. Again, the system has some great hardware inside and out, but you don't have a huge amount of control over it at this time. Again, standard time management, all the file services you would expect to have are available here. Everything, the ones you're kind of used to there, managing, MTU, separate, separation of the different network connections, remote access via their own. And again, via the apps and services in the App Center, you can add more stuff. They've got different bells and whistles that you can add to the system, from multimedia to secure network transmission. It's there, but again, a lot of it still relying on some of the third-party tools, which I know isn't for everyone that though want a full single ecosystem solution there. But again, this is kind of a new player in the world of NAS, very much a startup compared to other players. And again, in a security tab, there isn't really a security scanner, so I don't have the option there, for example, to check the strength of password auto block. Really, I would argue at this point, universally available things, they're not here, and I would like to see them. I'm surprised they're not here. And then there is the odd localization. You can see the Chinese characters there. It's not the end of the world. I mean, Christ, that's the first one I've seen. But I still think there is optimization to be done here. And I do think some of the security settings need to be tighter. Now, if you're going to have a NAS, chances are, just regardless of AI, multimedia, VMs, containers, all that stuff, chances are you're going to be utilizing it for backups. Now, backup and synchronization on this system is conducted in one or two ways. Number one, you've got the standard backup and synchronization tools, as you would expect. These can take advantage of local synchronization or Zettlab NAS to Zettlab NAS if you're going for multiple there. And again, this does create that local PC path that you're going to be backing up between the system and it, and you of course need to use the client application in order to do that. This option isn't afforded to using the web browser client there. And again, you've got the usual options for filtering there between them, but again, it's not hugely extensive. Now, backup operations, largely the same. So, for example, if you want to use another NAS, an external USB device, or use cloud synchronization, or use those other file services, the options are available to you there. So if we go, just for the sake of simplicity, we just select another area within the NAS to back up to and from to, just so we can show you the options. Let's go for that one there. So we'll select for mixed data into data, select next. We've got that backup policy of time and retention, and from there you can set at least filtration, but not really to file size or anything like that. And that's really it. Again, the fundamentals are there, but you can't really expand much out of them. Now, the other way that backups are maintained and managed on the system is with something called Coard. Coard takes advantage of SD card and USB connected automated and semi-automated and manual backups based on your own setup. So, for example, if we go for the auto copy, you select when something is connected to the system via one of those available ports. So the SD card slot right the way through to the SSDs. So if we go for backup 1, and I've spelled back up. From there, you select the destination on the system. So we'll go for that one there. Then you've got all of the filters there. What happens if something goes wrong? Whether you want to do an additional upload onto a cloud service, which is actually quite nice. Whether you want the transcoding to happen, reshape a video file, for example, which is a nice touch. I will say whether you want it expanded upon, whether you want to add file filters, whether you want to check things are done. These are nice. I want to see these on that backup and sync application there. There's a great deal more filtering, a great deal more control and management and tweaking, which I know isn't going to be for everyone in terms of time saving, but I really like that these options are here. I just wish these were available on that other backup and sync appliance. And again, manual copying is largely the same, but even more elements of control and customization are afforded to you there. So this application I really, really like. I just think, one, I don't quite understand the name Coard. Maybe I'm being very, very dense, but I think all of that should have been rolled into the backup and synchronization application. It should have been one app to do all of that with the same levels of filters, rules, and control. Then you've got photography there with its own internal photo application there. I would argue I expected it to be better. Now, by that, what I mean is I like what is here. I like what it is showing me. So for example, I can go into the albums mode here and then select and create curated albums. I can do curated filters, sorting, whether I want to go with additional sorry, not that one, that's uploading. If I want to create specialized filters on this system, there's not really much I can do. And I liked that this is scraping so much information. So for example, let's select an image that's got a lot of information. So how about this one here? This is an image, and then from there we can actually get more information. So we're going for information. You can see it has scraped all the information there. That's going to be great for the AI later on when I'm looking for information on 5 gigabit networking. That's going to be great stuff to have. And that, by the way, that extends all the way through to video files as well. As you can see there, where I've got videos where within the photo application, it's clearly scraped some of that information for me, which I can then get real-time information about and use the scraped information to learn more. But the facial recognition, where's that? Where's thing recognition in the photo application? Where's geolocational data from, you know, when I've taken photos on cameras? Where is that? Because, for example, if I change the view and I go for like medium view where I can see more, like, I'm kind of surprised that that information isn't being used. Because once you go into the more, in some cases, if we go to ones that, let's go for photos that were taken with my camera. So pixel there, this will find, let's do that proper. If we look for images that contain the word pixel, these are going to be ones from my phone. So, or at least from the Pixel camera. So from there, the metadata that's being scraped from it, you know, I know that there's a lot more metadata, and you can see there that the device it was taken on, all the aperture, all of those is great filtering information. It's great that it's OCRing, but all of that is information that is ripe to allow me to do facial recognition, to allow me to do thing recognition, geolocational information, and start grouping things together intelligently. Now, yes, I could just go into the file manager. I could just use some of these great features and services. Hell, I could go over here and create a brand new category. I could go ahead if I choose to, and then put on there CES. CES, the trade show, and then it's, you know, used naming data, used details from photos, and it's scraping it together, and I can use that to create categories, or I can select multiple items, and then from there, start creating a new folder. That's great, and then add that to a new folder. But, like, even the filters are there. It's all available to me, but I think there is still the finishing process on a lot of these applications and services that needs to be done. It is way better than it was when I looked at it like 8 months ago, when it really was just we have AI and the rest is TBC. This is a great deal more established, and I think we also have to acknowledge it's been really responsive up to this point. But I do think there is still room for improvement in the operating system, which when you are going to be laying out this sort of money, the AI is useful, and a locally AI appliance is useful, but you are buying a complete package, and I don't think this is a complete package yet. Now, earlier on I said I would talk about the remote access there while it's been running there in the background. It's worth highlighting, and if we get rid of that thing, we can see lots of different flags. Now, some of these are flags because I've installed some of the apps, obviously Plex, for example. But some of them, they do still need to clean up some of the DNS. What do I mean by that? So we go for that and go for some of the later pages. There are still some Chinese DNSs being accessed that require these apps that are running to be cleaned up and get rid of some of those. Because I know it's a Chinese developed appliance that is still yet to hit full traditional retail. And I completely understand that. So finishing touches, localization, optimization is still in progress. But at least right now, they need to clean up some of these DNS. It's not the Plex ones, because obviously I've installed Plex, but some of them, like accessing AliCloud rather than a US one, they're going to upset some people that care about security. And an AI appliance, if you're one of the main reasons people are buying a solution like this, they're doing so because they don't want to use ChatGPT, Gemini, and more. They want to use a local bare metal AI LLM. And to do that and then still have a NAS that is still talking, or at least trying to talk to Chinese IPs, which again, within a development cycle until it hits full retail is understandable, is still going to be off-putting for some if that is there at the retail product. I do still really like this system, and as a turnkey, genuinely off-the-shelf style appliance for AI, there's a lot to like here. The fact that it runs with an LLM out the gate and you can choose to modify it. The fact that the information is pre-scraped. The fact that it is scraping photo and video. The fact that pretty much the fundamentals of NAS aren't there, although are there, but they do still need scale up. Things still need to be improved though. The knowledge QA isn't really explained very well what it is, and it needs a better kind of showing of what it can and can't do. So for example, the idea that I could point this, if I chose, at an existing repository would be nice. The idea I could say, for example, with the knowledge Q&A, I point at a selected, say there was a plus here to go onto NAS and say, right, this directory of data, what is it? Tell me more about it. Not this one file, this repository of data, this knowledge base. The chat is useful. The chat to ask questions about my data. For example, what is a NAS? Let's face it, if I've uploaded years of my own data onto this, it's going to have answers based on my videos, based on documentation, scripts, photos and more. What a NAS is, that's great. But controlling the system is still lackluster via the LLM interface there. And the search and the chat, I think these are a little blurry which one's which. And I think a little bit more explainer on what each of those are would go a long way. And I do think some of the rudimentary applications, for example, merging Coard and the backup and sync application and their features, definitely do that. Better utilization of my AI crawled edge AI photo and more. You know, what I can do with that within the photo appliance would be nice. Again, facial recognition is fairly standard at this point within a NAS solution. Better control of auto blocking, two-factor authentication being native rather than an add-on appliance there. This is a good system, but it's not finished. And I think it needs a little bit more time in the oven. And hopefully this business with pre-orders and people that backed a crowdfunding product, I'm prepared to be a bit more lenient because it was a product in crowdfunding that arguably was way more crowdfunding than a number of established players that are using Kickstarter for rolling out products that they could definitely have gone retail. I think people that are receiving this via crowdfunding kind of knew that they were getting a product that was in development. But retail right now, I don't think the Ultra is retail ready right now. The one that uses local assets, and at the price tag that it is commanding, the D4, for example, at just 515, that's including the memory and more, is actually pretty bloody reasonable when you look at the marketplace right now. But even then, it requires local assets to be used on your system via a client application, and it's still the same software, and the software just needs a little bit more love, a little bit more localization, and it needs bells and whistles to the apps and services. I get Zettlab, I've been focused on the AI, but this is the complete solution, guys. You need to do more on the rest of it. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. I hope you've enjoyed this. We will be reviewing the full system with power consumption, noise, capabilities, compatibility, and just overall inside and out when the system is full retail. But at least for now, I wanted to focus on that software. Let me know what you guys think. I hope you've enjoyed this. If you did back Zettlabs, let me know if you were involved in the whole there is no memory in the world right now, therefore refund. How did that go out for you? Was there anything that I didn't cover in the vid that you want people to know about? That's what the comments are for. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this, and I'll see you next time.